say that you are in agreement when this is recorded. Yeah. Well, maybe we could just do a round of names before we get going. I think we'll have a possibility to share more of why we're interested in the training and so on. So maybe just to start with, would be good to have a round of names, where you are from, and then we'll begin. So Valerie, if you could start, Francisco, Monica, and then myself. I think that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Valerie. I'm from the Philippines and currently here in Switzerland.
Thank you. Francisco, you want to go next?
You're on mute, Francisco.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Valerie. My name is Francisco. I come from Colombia. I'm here in this meeting because I consider that a space to understand or to learn how to create or to start working on my new business or my idea or my ideas. It's an important place to learn how to do the different things I want to do as a business, and I think to meet other people who are also interested on to create a new project or a new business. It's interesting to know more information, new ideas, inspiration, and new ways on how to do what I want to do in a business or in my life. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Monica, would you like to go next?
Yes. So I'm Monika. I'm from Switzerland and also currently in Switzerland. And I think we can talk more later.
Great, thank you. My name is Matti, and I think we all know each other from earlier or later in my life, at least. And I live in Bern, or out in the wild, where that is existing, next to Bern. And I'm very excited for this info gathering that we can share more about what we're planning to go on an adventure with all together. So looking forward to that. And what I thought what I could do, if that is all right with everyone, that I would first give you about a 15-minute overview of what the training is all about. And then maybe we do a bit of a sharing of why this may be of interest and what may be of interest for each one, and then look more into questions. But it could just be a way of both learning a bit more about the training and weaving ourselves also together and seeing how we might support the people that we all know. And I know that especially Monika is very active, or have been very active in the last few years in Nepal. Francisco has been very active in Latin America. Valerie is not only in the Philippines, but also in Southeast Asia, and now in Switzerland. So I think we all are here for our own interests, and we're also here because there's people that we know who might be interested in what we're doing and seeing how could we make this work. So yeah, let's just dive in, and just wanted to check. Yeah, so Didier and Danielle, whenever they're ready, they're very welcome, and we would just give them a little heads up. So let me start with sharing my screen here with what the new business training is all about. Can you all see that? Yeah, cool. So the new business is a training program of 6 months that we are planning to run currently in 4 local teams, but it could also grow into more places. And I think that's part of tonight's call to find out, well, how could that look like and how could we work? The training focus is really on how can we create new business, not just in the fact that we want to start new business organizations or cultures or structures, but also that we really want to create a new paradigm of how we do business. Because I think a lot of the entrepreneurs, they still believe that they should live into the old stuff. And we're kind of done with the old stuff. But I think it's hard to get out of the old stuff because most of the things that people read today still describes an old way of doing business, of setting up business, of creating projects. And I think every now and then we have these flashbacks or these deja vus of going back into old behaviors, belief systems, patterns, and dominant logics that we really kind of need to learn to, on the teeter-totter from yesterday's ways to today's ways of how can we keep walking, and if it flips us back that we recognize, well, oops, we're just going back and now we need to go ahead again. And we will need each other to create businesses that are not just for us, but for our children and the children coming after that. Our aspiration is to plan more and more for 7 generations, which, if you think about it in years, would probably be something like 230 years. And that's a whole different ballgame. And of course, we don't know what's going to be in 230 years. But I think already starting to think about that way will change a lot of things. We want to eliminate doubt, because a lot of the fears that are currently in entrepreneurial spirits and young people, I think keeps them from living from their hearts into doing the stuff that they love and that they feel is important. So we really want to encourage people to not allow fear to dominate their lives anymore. And clearly, it's got to be an adventure. It's got to be fun. And I think together we will create new ways of how that future could look like. The training program is a readjustment from a training program that we've been running for a while. The new business has been a training program that we've run twice already with groups of participants here in Bern in Switzerland, with international participation groups. And we've adjusted it. We've adjusted it because we could see that with COVID, the situation has changed for many people. And we really wanted to make that a new way of moving forward. So the training is for people who have ideas for projects or for businesses, or who are simply dreaming about it. Sometimes you're not quite there yet, but sometimes you already walk and are pregnant with a baby that you know it's got to take a little more time. So you could see this is a parent program for people that have been pregnant maybe a few times before, with project ideas, with business ideas, and really want to make it different this time. And I think that's where the sustainability, where the 7 generational thinking comes in, and the really creating a change. The way this works will be every 2 weeks we will come together in local teams of 6 to 15 people for 2 days. And we'll be physically working together as much as we can. If not doable, people can still join us from all over the world through Zoom. But as much as we can, we want to get people together to be in person, because we've, despite COVID, just noticed that this working on project ideas and dreams and business structures is really important to do it in person, not only online. In between these 2-day oasis or training camps, we want to have one online call of about 2.5 to 3 hours to keep people inspired, to keep them thinking about what we are working with, and to also keep connecting, getting more input and making it available to them, whatever kind of tutoring or mentoring and guiding is needed for their own questions, for their own yearnings, to make it work. This will still include additional guidance sessions if that is what's needed. Everybody will be standing at a different point of view. We recommend people to be 18 years of age to get going with this, because it's helpful to kind of have a bit of a sense of how the world works and what we're really aspiring to do. We want to start December 1st to 4th with a first 4-day kind of kickoff, start into the way. And this is a training offer that we're doing together with other partners. One of them is Ethos, an organization based in the UK that is working with their Young Leaders program in creating new working situations for young people who currently are what you would call without a job or in a challenging situation and really want to make a difference. The modules and what you will learn with it. So module 1 in these 4 days is focusing on what is a regenerative business and what kind of skills do you need to make it going. How can you explore ideas and needs of potential partners, customers, and how do you create research that really helps you gather the information that you need to understand the field well enough and not just be on some cloud 57 to come up with some really cool ideas, but that have then nothing to do when you try to sell it. So this is really kind of getting the ground, creating a common language together. How do we move as a circular business, and what does it mean to move from an inner diamond as a way of staying in our center and not letting ourselves getting kicked out of that place. Second module focuses on mindfulness and our personal development and skills. So this is really, why is mindfulness important, and why do we not just need to look at how to make money, but how to create meaning, and what could meaning look like in different contexts. Not everybody needs to become the Dalai Lama because he already exists. But I think many of us, we could do new kinds of business, be that a more spiritual business or a more cultural business or a more emotional business or a more physical business or a more heart-minded business. And then looking at, well, what does it need? How good of a change maker, of a community builder, of a peacemaker am I already? And what would I still need in other people? So we're looking at personal training strategies, like how do you learn? What are your best ways of taking new information in? Is that through audio, video, interactive learning? What do you need so things really stick with you? We'll also be introducing some of the planning tools that we've learned work really well when you are working on your own, but sometimes with an entire network of partners, or when you're working as a team. How can you of people working part-time, coming in and out, maybe in the beginning working with volunteers. Like, how can you make the work transparent so people feel like they can dig in and they can get a sense of what this is all about? The third module, which will focus on how to make prototypes, how to try ideas out. And when we're looking and learning from nature, and biomimicry is one of the ways of how that has been done, like seeing principles in nature that could support us, could inspire us to the ways of how we do business with our own ways, that will help us in making prototypes. Prototypes are small tests of our bigger ideas to see, well, how could we work? How could we make it work? And what is maybe still needed to get other people involved? This will include things like action research, design thinking, this agile way of iterative motions and getting ideas to play out, and make as many mistakes as you can on the small platform, on the small frame. So when you then invest a little more the next time for the next prototype, it actually can grow, and it can help you grow a community around the business that you're doing. Module 4 is all about how to communicate unfinished business. I think what we've learned over the last 25 years that most people are scared to communicate their idea as long as it's not finished, as long as it's not perfect. So we often kind of stay in our little bubble and think like, oh, no, it's not ready yet. I don't have the website yet. The point is, you need to learn to communicate not in one-way communication, but in dialogue. So how can you make use of questions? How can you make use of involving and communicating with your potential target group or groups, and what are good strategies that you love. I think a lot of people today think that we should all be active on social media. I think that's bullshit. Not everybody loves social media. So find a way that you love doing and that can work with your kind of work rhythm, with your kind of situation, and find a way of how you can create communication strategies that really work for you, especially in these phases when you're not done yet. Because that will, as you will learn, often be a case where it can say, we got this, but we still would like to grow that. And that, of course, leads you to Module 5, which is all about, well, if I'm now having an inspiring dream or something that I'm very passionate about, how do I create a team that wants the same thing? And what powers do I already have? And what strengths and skills and superpowers of heroes would I still love to have from other people? How do you grow trust? Because involving other people means giving your baby to other people. And it's like, whoa. A lot of people are really scared of that. So how can you do that? How can you learn to grow trust? And how can you also learn to deal with tensions and conflicts? What when you're not in agreement with each other, which is usually the normal situation. We're not always in agreement. In Module 6, we'll be then focusing on how do you find resources and partners to make your idea and your team grow, your community grow. Learning how to move as a we, and learning how business plans can actually be a way of helping that, so that we're practicing what we call community planning for business plans, and not somebody alone in their little cubicle writing their business plan and nobody else knowing about it. This is also a real important training ground on why beauty matters, making invitations and how you get people together, how to make that beautiful, because whatever vibration you want to bring out into this world is important that you can practice it and create it on the inside. So the way how you approach everything, also when you're still in the very beginning spaces or stages, is super important, that you can invite people that they feel, whoa, this is different. They need to trust and see and feel that you want something else. And moving in ways that feel inspiring so that they can actually get shit done. So the power of making plans from the heart, mind, and strategies, and then follow up, and supporting each other in doing that. This then leads to completing the training with an exhibition and the celebration of all the work that has been done so far. And this will be sharing with the people that we love, online, offline, in all these hybrid ways today. And also it will include the harvesting of our learnings and to see how could next steps look like. So people basically will walk away with the benefits of both having created a concrete business plan, a concrete project plan, but probably more so having again and again done a self-check on where am I at? How can I move forward? What is needed? Who could support me? How do I create flow and energy for my vision, for my dream, and how to move forward? And to slowly, step by step, start building a community that wants to support what you're doing. The 8 ways, or the 8 dimensions, you could say, of a regenerative business are here. And this is kind of the model that we're working with, that supports people in both their own personal development, because these 8 power shields are 8 power sources that we can grow in ourselves, but we can also grow them as an organization, as a team. And sometimes a team is 2 people, sometimes a team is 10 people, sometimes it's 200, it doesn't really matter. But this is how you can start growing a business, so when it grows slowly, it can actually invite people into these different aspects and into these different dimensions of letting your business idea and the organization grow in a good space, no matter whether you work very locally or whether you work in a global conversation. We're assuming that this dialogue of hybrid and in-person will remain an important one, so we want to keep practicing and supporting each other. The tools that we're offering here are tools that we have trained and practiced over the last 10 years and before already with the building of the council of the chaos pilots and the council guide training. So it is really bringing together our experience from the last 25 years in how to work with startups, with bringing people together in community building and organizational development in a fun way. And the main point of this is really how do we create a support structure for every human being that wants to enter this program. What is needed in terms of other people, of teams, of networks, what is needed in terms of resources, and how can you actually get there. The training fee is also different from what we had when we started this program. It is with 5,200 Swiss francs, about a third of what the costs were when we did the 2 pilot projects or previous trainings in 2014 and 2015. And the reason for this is we feel that with COVID, a lot of people who actually would like to start up, they just have a lot less cash. And it feels important that we can make this possible also when people are in a financially tight situation. The training should allow for the participants to have a job, possibly having a family. So it should allow for working on the dream and the projects while still having kind of what people would call a life rhythm with 1 or 2 jobs. And it's a solid foundation also for further training if somebody wants to do that. And our aim is also with these 6 months to kind of create a foundation for everyone that joins to understand, okay, what might I still need? Or how could I get other people on board who already have the kind of training that I would need? Because obviously we're also training people to be more the conductors of their orchestras and not always just play a solo instrument. What people need to bring, dreams, ideas, projects. People can apply with a 2 to 3 video message on why they find this is important to them. We want to feel their hunger. We have an application form that will be available on the website in the next few days, so where they can respond to a few questions which is really about their hunger and interests of doing this. People need to be 18 years or older. English will be our working language, so it will help. In the local teams, people could still switch to other languages. That's not a problem, but I think our collective language will be English. So that plus having access to a computer and a stable internet connection is kind of a requirement that we don't need to worry every time about, is the connection there, is it not there. We can record, of course, but still people need to kind of download the data later on and be able to watch it. If we have, let's say, a local training team in Stockholm, or we have one in Cape Town, South Africa, people from the Western Cape would need to be ready to travel to that hub, so that they could, or if we take the example of Nepal, that people could either come to Pokhara or to Kathmandu to do the training for those times, or wherever else we could make it work. Where the internet connection would be well working. We assume that COVID is going to stay a little factor in our world, so we just need to keep playing. But as much as possible, we would love to still be able to come together, and we believe that with this kind of a system and structure, we should be able to run the training no matter how COVID plays out. Unless everything goes into full lockdown, then we're obviously in a little challenge again, but so will the rest of the world be. We have trainers and mentors in this training program that will come together, that will support both people that are good at more of the business aspects, the project development aspects, the community building aspects, but also the communication side of things. I think what is often underestimated is that you should be able to make a budget as the first thing, and then you should make the business plan. And often the communication and the sales come a bit too late. So we try to bring that together in this training program, because this is what we've learned is often or has been missing. 7Generations and Zonsdorf as kind of the backbone, or one of the backbones for how we are working together, and how you are able to also use our network that we've built up over the last 30 years for contacts, for information, and for support, I think will be very helpful. And so the question really is, can you make shift happen? Ta-ta. So much for my 20-minute speech, which turned to be a 25-minute speech. And maybe it's good to dive right into the maybe around for why you find this might be of interest for you or for the people that you're thinking about, and also start sharing your questions. And I think that for all of us, it could be that having a local team in one of these areas that we care about, that we've been active in, it would be good to kind of hear, well, what do you think might be needed to speak with people about it, and to present the program to so that they could kind of find a way. We also believe that there is ways of how we can get support from foundations to financially support participants and change makers in all these areas, because we clearly believe that this is going to be a way of how we can actually help boost social entrepreneurs, cultural entrepreneurs, educational entrepreneurs, and in addition to the more transdisciplinary entrepreneurship that we are looking at here, because we're of course not just trying to boost IT, but we are really trying to bring meaning to communities, to societies in a way that feels inspiring today. And I would just suggest that we maybe this time start around with Monika, Francisco, Valerie, to bring your questions. And yeah, just if you want, gladly share a few more words of where you come from and why this might be of benefit for some of the people that you're thinking about.
Okay, thank you, Matti, for your introduction. And I'll jump right into it. I must say this is quite new to me. So we only had a short exchange via text messages, and I just felt very curious about the ideas and the plans that you have in Nepal, because as you mentioned, that's where I've been working the last few years and trying to set up sustainable businesses in the tourism sector. So I'm interested in this training to recommend it onwards to some of my partners who might be interested. So I wanted to know a little bit more also about basically the framework of what you are planning to do in Nepal, more in terms of who are your partners, at what stage are you in this collaboration, in this planning, so that I can judge a little bit more whether these people I'm thinking of might be interested. Generally, I'm finding it very valuable to have this plan for Nepal, because I really see, and that's one of the reasons that I'm considering how to also change the way I work there, is really all over the world we need the change to happen, but in Nepal, there's this, what do you call that? There's just this huge pull of different forces, from tradition to globalization to the old ways, the new ways, other ways, and there's such a high need for regenerative working and living. And so, yeah, I'm finding this very important, especially as also the business sector is really growing, and there's so much young potential around which needs orientation in order to really make things differently than before. So I'm finding it very, very valuable. But yeah, my question really would be, what is kind of the more concretely the structure and the people you are planning to work with for specifically Nepal?
Oh, thank you. I suggest we just move around, listen to all the questions first, and then kind of play, because it could be that several questions are overlapping or are very different. So I would love to, but thank you so much already. Francisco, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you, Matti.
I feel very familiar what Monika said before, because my main interest is to also invite people and friends from Colombia. I think the different conflicts that we are living in Colombia somehow are related of the conflicts that people are living in Nepal. And I think in my personal feelings, it feels like the normal people from the neighborhoods trying to survive against of the huge system that is trying to pull them inside. And, and I feel that that's somehow what people needs in Colombia. Is like, as Monika said, there is a bunch of young, very good people, young people, ideas, what what is growing in neighborhoods or in the countryside from countryside people or young peoples around businesses. I think for me, that's something that could change actually the reality in Colombia. I actually would respect, I don't know so much about Nepal, but in Colombia, we are living in a civil war, hided as a democracy. And many people have has been trying different ways to change the reality, even the violence. But, but I think the young people have very good ideas to change, to build up businesses, to sell what they love to do, to sell what they like to do. And most of those things they like is things we have learned from our families, mother, father, on the neighborhood or relatives. And I think that needs support. And I think on these kind of ways of to create businesses, not a huge company, but something that is actually owned by the community. I think that's a way that I consider smart to work on the people that actually wants to work and need to work and need to eat and need to transform the reality. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Do you have concrete questions?
Yes, I think sometimes I feel I'm wondering about how the people who are, for example, in Nepal or Colombia, how people can actually be in contact and connected. You said, Matti, basically to have internet data, it's important, but how to build those connections that can be strong rather than, more strong than the internet data or something.
Oh, thank you. Valerie, would you like to go next?
Sure. So very similar. And the one that struck me is like right now what I sense is that there's an opening, that people are really looking for something else, that they're like, okay, this is not working and I want to start moving with that makes sense, and not just, it makes sense because somebody told me, but it makes sense from the inside. So I'm seeing a lot of this, and at the same time I'm seeing that they don't really know how to move, or there's many things out there that are very surface oriented, where it's like, oh yeah, just do these 10 lovely tricks and you're good to go, but so it's so easy to fall back in the old patterns. And another one that I find really cool is because right now, say in the Philippines, for an entrepreneur and then maybe to become to become an entrepreneur, everybody has in their mind that, okay, I need to take a 4-year course in business, and so I think this is incredibly relevant and impactful, in that, okay, you can get 6 months and we go from your personal skills all the way out to your team, and also really looking at what are people's strengths, and how do I use that? How do I evoke it? How do I bring it to surface and get them engaged? So I find it that there's definitely a huge space in the Philippines. There is a want. My question then is how to bridge this want to have their minds open to, okay, maybe I need to start looking at something different. It's not the 4-year course. It's not the 1-month course, like to get this search, because the meaning is there, the want is there, but I find the curiosity or the ability to really explore and go out of the box in their exploration is sometimes like a miss. So I feel like a bridge to even be open to something like this. So what is that bridge? How can that be communicated? Another question for me is, like, say in the Philippines, the people that are, a lot of the people are just having a hard time financially, and even though it has been cut, it will be something to play with. So in my head, I'm wondering about the ethos, and I know they're somehow funding, and I'm wondering how I could then tap the government to use some of their funds to something like, you know what I mean? Because there's money there. It's just, okay, how to circulate it to the people that have the courage. But at the same time, the same people are also with these mental money blocks of, I can't afford it, and why would I spend on myself? And no, I will just start like super small, and yes, and not realizing, but to bring a business out, you need a huge amount of power. And to get a global community and a local community coming in full force, it's like, I think just that my question would be how to relate that, how to get them to explore more, like really expansive, and then funding wise, how to support that. These are my words.
Oh, thank you all for the questions. And I'm really glad that they're all really easy to answer. So I think this is just fantastic that we're kind of bringing all these questions together. No, kidding. I think what is striking me as you are all speaking, it speaks to, there are people obviously that we all know that are somewhere between dreaming and either they need encouragement to really try out what they're dreaming, that it could actually be true, that it could become a reality, that they start trusting their heart more and more, and that they're daring to ask people that they maybe so far haven't asked. So I think it really has something to do with sharing from kind of an insight, like what is on my heart, and then creating an environment that allows not just for the safety to share, but but an environment that then, doesn't keep you small, doesn't just help, doesn't just bring you a computer and 5,000 Swiss francs, because we've all seen that doesn't work. It sounds interesting, it sounds great, but the problem is, unless somebody is really wanting to move, he or she is not going to make good use of that computer and the 5,000 Swiss francs. And everybody can use a computer and 5,000 Swiss francs. So what we've learned is that, like in art, artists are often most creative when they have little things. So there's obviously something that we need to kind of, and I think many of you spoke to this, how do we make benefit of the situation that many of these people are in a situation of having little and also being in a mindset of scarcity, but using their joy and their compassion for the world, for their community, for their people, for a service, for it's got to be done differently, a willingness to fight for something in life that feels is not going against others, but is going for something. And I think if we can harness that in these training rounds, it's very important. I also think that what is just happening in this call is that we're actually bringing together the world in some way. We're just describing, Bhutan, Nepal, Colombia, the Philippines, Switzerland. And on some level you could think that's, I don't know shit about Colombia, or I don't know much about this or that. But the point is, these situations are all quite similar. I think we're talking about the many pockets of people that are right now just thinking I slowly, and I think what COVID has done is it has pulled the covers over many problems in this world. So the problems are visible. We know the shit that doesn't work, and we know quite clearly why it doesn't work. And I think there's many people that have the courage today to actually try something new, but they of course need a support system. They of course need guidance and resources to kind of move on this and move together, because the age of the lonely wolf is over, and we haven't learned the ways of the we, the ways of the circle. We have to remember those things, because they were existing in all cultures worldwide for many thousands of years, and we basically forgot them since Industrial Revolution, because that is where people became numbers, and that I think is something we just have to kind of get back to in a new way. So I'm really appreciating all your sharings and what you're speaking to. I think to some of these concrete questions, my sense is we need to, as soon as there is like a group of people that maybe you, Monika, say, hey, in the different communities I work in Nepal, if you say, if there's 6-7 people that we could get together who might be interested in kind of taking part in a program, doing this together, then we would need to do our job in finding a local team leader, a local guide that could support these. We have at the moment in Nepal 5 partner organizations and people that all are interested in moving with this, because they all say, we've got 2 or 3 people, but maybe it's not enough to create like a local team yet. But we could probably provide, there's this one NGO that's been promoted by a group of Swiss people that runs a hospital, and they are super up for getting their young talents to learn more about the business world, because it's clear that just being a medical doctor or a nurse or a physiotherapist that hasn't trained you, that hasn't prepared you for how could you make a new business work in a community? So I think there's more skills that are needed, and people can kind of feel that bringing their educational background with their life experience together and connect with new people in new ways. So I think as soon as we have a group of people, 6, 7, 8, in a place physically where we can say, okay, Kathmandu, let's find a place, let's find a school, let's find a cafe, let's find a place where these people could meet on a regular basis. And if not, let's do it online. I really want to, if we cannot find a physical location, because maybe some of them are in Charikot or some of them are more in another area of the country, but they could have an internet connection, then let's find a way of how to make it possible to work together. The reason of these intervals is before, in the first 2 new business trainings that we did, we had monthly rhythms. 3 days of training, and then a month, and then again 3 days. And people said that was great because they loved the 3 days to dive deeper. But we also noticed that often they had forgotten everything that we had spoken about before. So we realized that month is too long. So we need to give people time so they can play with, apply, practice, ask their community, their friends, their family, test something in their backyard or in their garage or in their school or wherever, and come back with the questions and the learnings that they've had. But that's why we went to a 2-week rhythm, because we feel 2 weeks is kind of long enough so you don't have to travel all the time. But you could kind of do it even if it's 200 kilometers and maybe it's doable traffic-wise and cost-wise and all of that. And there may be, we've had one interested person who lives 1,200 kilometers away from Cape Town, and he said, "Look, I could come maybe every second time. I could come every month, but I cannot come every 2 weeks down to Cape Town. That's just, it would kill me." Energy-wise, I cannot travel that much. So that is fine. Then we'll find a way of bringing the people together online, but kind of making a rhythm that would feel, wow, cool. It's good to feel each other. It's good to be together. And even if, let's say, we only get 5 people in Nepal, and maybe we cannot do it in one local group because they all come from different parts of the country, I think already them being able to visit each other, them being able, I think already that creates kind of a lot of a boost, because you by sharing where you are, how you're working, what your problems and challenges are, that opens up so much of the hearts of the people to make a difference. But the idea is, as soon as we have a group somewhere, we will make sure that we get a trainer there. And if that's not doable, we'll make it online as much as we can. But our sense is, with our network from these last 30 years, we are blessed by now with having lots of different people that we can kind of play with, and otherwise let's fly there. Let's just, I have a helicopter. With regards to finances, I think we need to build a scholarship fund with different foundations to support the different change makers and community builders in these different countries. It may be different foundations, because I'm not sure if we have one foundation that just says, yes, cool, if you guys can train 5,000 entrepreneurs over the next 10 years, here is blah, blah, blah. But some of these foundations, they work that way. They say, if your numbers are impressive, we will do it. And so there is this finding out, well, where is small is beautiful and where is big is powerful, kind of meeting each other. And so I think, with regards to these different ways, I think it's just important that we find out, well, who would that be? What kind of a background do people have? And then come up with financial support systems. Our learning so far has been with the Chaos Pilots that when we give full scholarships, it doesn't always work out well. Meaning, sometimes kind of providing everything for someone makes people relax more into a weak spot. We've had other people, like Francisco is one of those beautiful examples, who as soon as you came here were looking for work immediately. We've had lots of other examples where people kind of go, oh cool, I got a scholarship, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. And so I think what we need to look at is kind of partial scholarships, so that people, the first question whenever somebody says, ooh, I would love to but I cannot afford it, and say, well, how much can you afford? And how could you pay it? Could you pay it over the 6 months? Could you pay it over a year? Could you pay it over 2 years? On some level, I don't care how we get the money in. What I think is important is that there's a commitment, and the people say, I'm willing to make this work. Because people need to understand that nothing is for free in this universe. You got to exchange somehow. And And help is provided if you want to. Like, of course we will support, but people also need to understand if this is valuable to you, you gotta find a way of working for it. Some people can pay a part in money, others may be able to exchange in, I don't know, finding more participants in the next few years. There could be many ways of how we could make this work. But I certainly believe that finding a bridge with international or national or local or regional funding possibilities will be important to create partial scholarships so that people can actually make it work. But so if you talk to people and find out, well, would that be a possibility for you? Ask them, well, how much can you afford? Because that already gets people into the mode, it's maybe doable. So how much could I? And here's how much I could. And then how would you make the rest go work? And where would you need to support with? And of course, this will include, especially in some of the remote areas, that people can't travel. Their internet will cost, because some of these internet services are satellite dish providers where you pay for every bit that you download or upload. So I think the training costs is not the full cost of what we're actually looking at, because if people need to travel, if people need overnight accommodation, like there is more cost involved. And I think we just got to be aware of those additional costs to make people feel that, this is on our radar. And no, I don't know where people live and how much it actually takes them to travel from one city to another, or from the countryside to how you can make it work. But I think this will kind of be our testing field to make a program that ran well in Switzerland to make it run well internationally, and not have people travel internationally, because that is just right now with COVID not doable. There will be different specific questions from people from different fields. What we in 7Generations have done over the last 2 years is try out different, you could say, fields of life. So how can we transform educational fields? How can we transform healthcare? How can we transform tourism? How can we transform IT? How can we transform mobility? How can we transform communities, municipalities? Like we've tried out in different, about 10 different fields. Well, how could transformation look like? Arts and culture. How could we make that happen? So there will be a way, like the training, the way it is set up now is kind of, you could say, business neutral. Because it clearly speaks to, yes, social entrepreneurship, yes, cultural entrepreneurship, yes, educational entrepreneurship, but it doesn't give the clear kind of, well, if you are in healthcare, what would it be needed? Or if you are in tourism, what would be needed? But that is something we want to provide with the mentors. So the support structure is connected to every participant through the kind of mentor who helps this person or this group. So it also works well with if you're thinking of 2 or 3 people in a project team who could use some boost, because what often these startup teams lack is time together and support to actually talk together long enough to create clarity. Are we on the same page? Are we talking about the same thing? Because in most of these project groups, you always have the situation that some people have invested a lot of thought already into something, and others have just joined newly. So you need to create a common language. You need to create a common foundation. And we have different cultures in the world. Some are more oral traditions. So when you ask somebody in South Africa, do you have a business plan? They will say, yes, yes, yes. It's just never on paper. Like, why would you have a plan on paper? That does not make sense in an African context, because it's all oral. It's all a spoken culture. So I think finding ways, well, if you want to get an international sponsor for your project, well, how do you bridge that? How to create ways that really can work for the kind of culture you're working with, the kind of communities you want to engage with. And I think that's what we are wanting to create with this training is a solid trampoline for people to be able to practice moves and bounce a few times and see, well, how could I do this differently? How can I do more of these movements? Do I really enjoy it? Try it out. Because some people, they think it would be great to be an entrepreneur, but then you realize, no, I already have sleepless nights now. I cannot afford to have more sleepless nights with also running a business. And of course, that is part of being an entrepreneur. I have about 10 sleepless nights every year. And you just learn to live with it. You learn to share about it. You learn to say, yeah, that's normal. And it just means something is burning in me. So there's an inner fire, and sometimes it's hungry and it needs to be fed. And sometimes I've had questions and worries and concerns, and that's also good. So it's good to have people that you can share that with, so you don't feel alone with that situation. Because the alone feeling, that's what's killing you. And I think that's where people kind of need to go from. That was a lot of words. Maybe it responded to some of the questions in or gave you some insights in how that could look like. And maybe we could just do either a follow-up call or look into what next steps might be needed. My sense is we could set up a next info call and then maybe just invite each some more groups. We may need to have some translations because obviously some of the people may be good in English and some may need some English, Spanish or Nepali translations, or even in the Philippines. I don't know how so far my sense was always that people understood English quite well, but I think there's a need for more info and more clarification, like, so how could this look like, and what do I need to bring, and is it okay if I have 3 ideas? And we had an architect coming in, what was that, 2 weeks ago, and he was like, and I think I know. And then he presented his 12 slides to us, and we were like, dude, exactly. This is so. Sometimes you need to have the conversation with people to find out, could this serve you? Could this benefit you? If so, what are your questions? And always trust that there's always more questions coming. I think that's just what's important here. And it could be that you, Monika, for example, and Francisco and Valerie, that you each, could support your people being a local team leader, depending on your kind of travel plans or how it is possible to go to some places, that we work together on this, because I know all of you have a tremendous amount of project development, community development experience, and communication experience, fundraising experience. So I mean, you are all spiders in the web that could be of support. So this may also be something to look into. Well, how could that then look like? But of course, it could also be that it's like a mix of taking part yourself and supporting others as a mentor, as a guide. So depending on the kind of bridges, I think that's really what we need to look into. How could the people that we believe would benefit from this training, how can we create these bridges for them so they feel strong and strengthening even more to the kind of collaborations that we're trying to establish. And I think in all these places, what we've learned over the past is international connections just motivate and inspire you. Realizing that other people somewhere else on this planet have similar questions and challenges, that is so touching, and it just supports. So realizing, oh, I'm not alone, and others are really interested in what we're doing here, and that we're saving the planet on this side. And I think that's really the most inspiring thing to play with. We do have an online structure, an online platform with our Google Drive, where we want to offer our tools as well for this training, so people can actually learn how to join into a bigger organization. They could also join, how does a working zero company, a circle structure, a circle business look like, so they could join some of our meetings. And so we want to also give people access to, for those of you who would like that, to get experience in, well, how do you actually do it? because I think it's one thing to kind of read a textbook or get an inspiring lecture, but it's another to see, well, so how does it practically work? And we want to have that inspiration in there and give people more opportunities to join in more if that's what they want. We're well aware that some people will use this to kind of boost their business straight away as they're doing the training. There may be some that do the training and only in 5 years will kind of bring a project then into motion that will feel like that. I just got a call the other day from a participant from the first new business training, and she just thanked me in beautiful words of, this was so inspiring for me, and no, the project that I was working with at the time I did not put into practice, not the way I thought I would, but it has helped me over the years so many times to kind of keep pushing, keep moving forward, knowing that as long as I'm seeking, as long as I'm exploring, this is valuable, this is beneficial, and the tools and the attitudes that I've learned here have really helped me to move forward with an open heart, with courage, with trust and confidence, knowing that it doesn't always click in 5 minutes. Sometimes you have to keep digging at it for 5 years, and that's perfect. I think change making is a long-term adventure, so we may sometimes not feel so successful as the world calls it in some of these projects, because it just takes a whole long time to prepare the ground, to get moving and to get going, to build up your community, and suddenly it may click and jump. Cool. I hope this helps for like a first next round, and maybe we can I know we're going slightly over time, so I just want to be mindful of that. I know some people have other commitments or are hungry. But maybe we could just do a completion round with both some words of how does that resonate, and maybe also just bringing in more questions that kind of have popped, because it could be that some of the questions are needed. We respond to them like one-on-one. It could be that some of the questions could be responded to in an additional meeting that we have, or in a next info session. So I would suggest we begin maybe this time, Valerie, Monika, Francisco, and then I would complete, hopefully in a appreciative way. I was going to say smart, but then I realized smart is maybe not exactly what we want.
Hi, my name's Valerie. It really resonates also with partial scholarship. I also 100% agree that a certain exchange needs, like, this is for me a physical way of going, yes, I'm in. So I totally agree with that, and also like the expansion of when looking for or building the bridge of organizations that might be willing to fund. It's the meeting of the smallest beautiful and big is powerful, and where does that meet? So that's what struck me. That was really cool. And for questions, I'm sure it will come again later. I usually need time to absorb everything, and then the questions come. These are my words.
Monika, you want to go next?
So many things clarified, but more questions came up. I agree with Valerie. I like the scholarship proposal that you made with some sort of partial funding, which I believe is quite relevant for most people in Nepal as well. I do have two very concrete follow-up questions. One is the date that you mentioned, 1st to 4th December. I assume that's very short term if we want to build up something with scholarship funding and some sort of more, some more deeper foundation. So what we are talking about is probably for starting sometime next year. So it's a longer term building up, as I would assume. It seems quite unrealistic to start in December at the stage where maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I get. And then I have one more question regarding, again, the situation the way I would see it happen in Nepal. So the training is given by you, Matti, and people from 7Generations, but that would be online, like delivered online to the people who gather in a specific place in Nepal, with a team leader who sort of is there to coordinate, to back up, to be physically there with the people. But you will be delivering the training from Switzerland or from South Africa, wherever you are. Is that right?
Correct. And with regards to your first question, I think it really depends on the people. So there are foundations that are very eager and hungry to support, and also are willing to make quick moves and unbureaucratic moves. So if you have people, I think that could just kick in now, I think it would be great. And so let's see if this is, it's a difference if it's 5 people or if it's 25, to kind of find that amount of money for. But again, it's not a huge amount. So I would really go with the hunger of the people and then kind of determine what, of course, in the long run, we got to build up this fund to already be available. But I also believe that if we have, let's say, 6 people from Nepal that say, hey, we want to do this kind of training because that is what we lack in order to do blah, 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 then, I mean, that is the kind of information that foundations need to hear, because they're like, yeah, we would love to support meaningful ways in, making substantial contributions to people that really have a concrete need and that are hungry and willing to make a change. And I think the reason why sometimes foundations have said no to scholarships is simply because they couldn't see a link. If you want a scholarship for university study is not going to prepare you well for a specific project. So it's very too generic, and you feel like, well, if we're pouring some water over this plant, how does it then serve blah, blah, blah. But with this training, we're addressing a very different target group, and I think a very different need. So that's why I think it's going to work. And yeah, that's just what I would say as the short version. So let's keep talking. And I think as soon as you have some people that you think like, hey, if I think concretely, like, who could that be? Where are they at? What are they working with? Then I think we could also, kind of put together a case to say, okay, there is, 10 change makers in Nepal. There's 12 in Colombia. There's 7 in the Philippines. There's 17 in Switzerland. All right, and then suddenly we have a bigger case that is propelled by everyone, which I would really love. Hope that helps. Francisco, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Now I just have a lot of different thoughts coming up in my mind. I'm from Colombia, and personally, I come from a very politic background. So these concepts, anarchy, socialism, capitalism, very used to in my circles. And I think something that I find very important, talking from my background and let's say for my people, is that it's important to put a goal to change things. And I think with Valerie's questions or thoughts about the scholarships, I think I agree totally with you, Matti. How, and I think that's something that the new business training can offer. In my personal case, for Colombian people, like, hey, the next goal is to, I don't know, achieve this amount of money, this amount of work, this amount of workshops or whatever. But I'm happy to understand that in my culture in Colombia, we like more challenges than money, because we have learned that through challenges and surviving, we will find what we need. And I think it's beautiful to understand how we can share that with the people. And I don't have a specific question, but I think I just wanted to mention that, like, how the relationship with the money in one side and the relationship with our secret dream of life in the other hand, how is that deal with us? And I'm happy to hear that there is people open to work, to learn, and I really find it very valuable for myself as a person if I would like to change something. And I will be happy to invite my friends. I think there will be language gaps and money problems, but I think if we propose to the people, let's make this possible, people will do that. And I feel that confidence is beautiful for me.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I hear you, and I'm really appreciating, you know, the kind of, I think this is really the balance that we need to kind of achieve. On the one side, we need to strengthen the dreaming of people, and on the other, we need to strengthen their realism, their realityism, which of course needs to be pushed. So we will need to work on people's limiting beliefs about resources. And this is not something you change in 6 months, but we can lay the foundation for that. And I think they need to again and again hear stories of projects where people with courage have managed to gather enough energy around themselves to move forward. And sometimes already hearing that, knowing like, okay, somebody else has tried and has done it and has been successful at it and is still doing it. I think that is all the encouragement we need. We don't need to have the ready-made solutions, but we need to know that if we make a step, somebody else is there to make a step. And we're all making steps together. That's what the bigger dance is all about. And so I think for those of us who have walked this path in a while, and I'm 49 now, and I still sometimes feel like, you know, I'm still the beginning of it. Even though when I look back, I know I've helped many projects and organizations to collect thousands and millions of Swiss francs or dollars or whatever other amounts. But I think the biggest resource is still courage, trust, and community. And I think that people need to understand that, because the problem with the business model canvas is it doesn't fucking show that. So it's not that that's a bad thing, but business cannot be reduced to financial figures only. So there is a masculine principle that we need to play with, and there's a feminine principle we need to play with. One is the doing, the other is the being. And business is not just about the doing. And I think that is what we kind of need to bring together, and I think that is what will help change this world. Because if we keep continuously focusing on just the doing part, you're just creating heart attacks. And that's not healthy for anyone. We have way too many people in the world that currently juggle a lot, and they're the ones that are going to have too much stress. They have too much stress and they will die. So we cannot allow that to happen. We need to create a new way of entrepreneurship that is healthy. And of course it means stretching. Of course it means getting up early. Of course it means doing your shit. Of course it means creating order in your house. Of course it means creating beauty everywhere you go. And no, it's not going to be an easy peasy life. But I don't think that that's what we want. We want to be well used when we rest at night. We want to feel that there was something meaningful that we were engaging with today. And I think that's what we need to kind of create. So I think we just got to move forward with this. And what I would appreciate if, all of you could in the next few days just, keep collecting some more questions, send them to me and suggest when could we meet next, what would be a good way forward. Let's say if December 1st to 4th could be a cool way of starting up. Well, who would be up for it? What would be needed to make it happen? And be very pragmatic and just bold. Let's say, I think, 3 people, they would be ready immediately. No bigger information round needed. 4 more, probably very interested, but probably bigger questions around finances or blah, blah, blah. Just make it as concrete as you can, because I think this will help us in then seeing, so how can we best support? And again, finding a support that strengthens them, not that weakens them. Because in the end, if they want to be project people and entrepreneurs, they need to be able to move stuff. So we cannot afford to feed their weaknesses. We have to feed their strengths. Cool. 18:18 is on my clock. I think that's a perfect moment to end this conversation. And thank you so much for being here, for taking your time, for bringing your questions and engaging, and starting to already in your mind reach out to all these different groups and communities of people that you've been working with, engaging with. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you all soon. Wishing you a beautiful evening and see ya.